Hi, folks. How you doing? Can you hear me? Thanks so much for waiting. I really appreciate your patience. I was just having some technical issues there, but I think we're all good now. Um, so thank you. How are you? This is a live stream. This is January 2025. And I'm very excited to be here and to help you as best I can over the duration of this workshop with your career goals. So this is an open session. Please feel free to provide your own comments, ask your own questions, and interact. This is an interactive session. So I would love to hear from you. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, like Tap on Me 86. Thanks so much. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I would also like to present some ideas in this webinar as well. So I'm going to share my screen. So as we go through this, please feel free to let me know if you have any questions. But I'm going to start off with talking about skills, strengths, and achievements, because I think that is such an important area for us to kick off with. When you're thinking about your next career steps, in order to really, get the most out of your career, it's really important that you know what you've got to offer. And that's where understanding your skills, strengths, and achievements come in, right? So when you think of these, we can break them down into various different areas like skills. Well, we're going to talk about primary and secondary skills. We can talk about achievements, responsibility, abilities, soft skills, education, passion, specialist knowledge, strengths, and attributes, right? So there's all these different areas that we have as strengths. And when you understand what you've got to offer, you can create a professional brand. Now, when you have a professional brand, you know what you've got to offer so you can direct your career in the best possible way for you. That way you can make the most out of your abilities and reach your potential. So often when we don't know what our direction is, it's because we don't know what we've got to offer. So I find this is a super place to start, right? Now, to kick off and to kind of warm up that exercise, victory stacking is a great place to start. So victory stacking is really about focusing on what are the large and small victories that you've experienced recently. Why did those victories go well? Because you put a lot of effort in, because you're very skilled, because you use your education, because you're able to collaborate with stakeholders. So why did those victories go well? It's really important to do this exercise, I would say, at least once a week, especially if you're in the job hunting market. That way you can make sure that you're really consolidating all that you've achieved, what your victories are. It's super important for being able to present yourself well in interviews, for being able to update your LinkedIn profile, but crucially, so that you know what you've got to offer for yourself. So I really encourage you to do this exercise. Now, when you go through those victories, you can also ask yourself the last questions like, how did those victories make you feel? Did you feel proud? Did you feel successful? Did you feel excited? And did other people give you praise? Did they give you compliments? Did they give you encouragement? It's really important to write those sort of things down. So all of that is an exercise on focusing on the positive, focusing not on the challenges or the problems that you have, but focusing on what you want to focus on to make you feel confident. And that's what this is all about, your skills, your strengths and achievements, what you're doing well. So if anyone would like to share an achievement, a victory that they've had recently, I would love to hear from you in the chat. That would be fantastic. You might even find it's a little bit difficult to clarify it, to define it, to write it out, to put metrics alongside it. So I'd like to talk you through that process now, and hopefully that will assist you with this. So here are a couple of examples. Securing a high-value client and starting it off well. That could be a victory that someone has had recently. It would be a sales type of victory, or it could be a customer relationship management type of victory. Another one is increasing social media following by 10% this month. So if you found that all the activities that you did produced a better result for social media, that would be something to take note of. You see, the 10% is a nice way to quantify that, to put a metric behind it. And then finally, hiring a marketing coordinator who's settling in well. Right? That's another good way of thinking about an achievement. Maybe you've taken on a lot of work recently and you feel overwhelmed, so you had to outsource that to somebody else. Taking on someone new would be a good victory, because then it shows that you're able to delegate. It shows you're able to make decisions. It shows that you're able to hire, to train, and to give someone continuous feedback to help them on their way. So for anyone who's just joined, we're talking about skills, strengths, and achievements, and we're talking about an exercise to help you understand and evaluate them. And that exercise is called victory stacking. It's about focusing on what you want to focus on to build confidence, to create a brand. And when you have that brand, your direction is clear because you know who you are and you know what you've got to offer, right? Practically speaking, you can also use that brand for your profile section on your LinkedIn. You can also use it for a professional summary on your CV. And essentially, you can use it in an interview when someone says, "Can you tell us about yourself?" Really, they're not just saying, "Can you tell us about yourself?" really randomly and in general. They're saying, "Can you tell us the highlights of you and why we should specifically hire you for this role that you're going for?" So that is a great way to think about it. Now, let's dig a bit deeper. If anyone has any questions, as I said at the start, please feel free to drop them into the chat. I would love to hear from you, and I'm happy to answer your questions directly. If you're interested in sessions like this, maybe you'd even prefer to do a session that is interactive where we jump on Google Meet. If so, next month I will be doing a session on Google Meet. It's on the 3rd of February, and we'll be interacting across the video chat. So let's talk some skills. If we're talking about primary skills, and I said, well, tell me the 2 or 3 core skills that you have today, what would you say? What are your primary skills? A lot of people, when I ask them this question in my career coaching sessions, they say, yeah, I don't know. I solve problems. I help people. I do my work. I just do my job. And that's totally understandable because it's not often we think about our primary skills in this way. So here are some skills that I've written down to help jog your memory. Okay. Administration, client relationship management, sales, customer service, marketing and public relations, event management, merchandising. You can see them all lined up there. Pretty straightforward. Now, a lot of you might find that you might have 1 or 2 of these skills, but really give yourself a chance to see if there are any other skills in there that maybe you do, but you don't really consider that you do. Like, administration is something that almost all of us have to do, whether or not we like it. It's filing, it's updating records, it's sending emails, maybe it's sending post, maybe it's counting cash. This is this is just an example of some of the skills. Of course, there are other skills that you could include that I haven't included here. Obviously, I couldn't include all the skills in the world. Like, let's say customer experience is a skill that some people would have that's not down there. A classic question people have when they look at this, 2 of the common questions people have when they look at the primary skills list is they want to know more about, let's say, project management, and they want to know more about operations. So when you think of project management is really doing a project from start to finish and using resources like time, energy, money along the way to achieve a specific result. So if you find that that is something that you have to do on a regular basis, then project management is a skill that you have. Another common one is operations. So anyone who has to ensure the day-to-day operations of a business, a department, a function, a shop, an organization, anyone has to ensure that that runs smoothly on a day-to-day basis. They're involved in operational activities. Now, that doesn't mean you're the operations manager. It just means you're someone who runs the operations or who runs a part of the operational activities. Okay, so what are your primary skills? If anyone would like to share their primary skills in the chat, please feel free to do so. I'll give you an example. If you asked me, you said, well, Ronan, what are your primary skills? I would say, well, I have many skills, but 3 of my core skills that I get paid for are, coaching and mentoring people from all stages of their careers, from CEOs, all the way to managers and interns. And so coaching and mentoring, and also business development. That's the other core thing that I have to do to make sure that my business continues to grow and develop over the months and years. So coaching, mentoring, and business development are 3 of my core skills. Of course, I do business operations. That's just a part of running any business, but I don't emphasize it because I think the other 3 are the most important. Right. So when you think of these 3 core skills, do they fit together? And are you happy to present yourself with these as your own personal and professional brand? Okay. Now, any questions on that? If so, please let me know. So choose your top 3 skills and write down 3 examples of using them, right? So if, let's say, you're doing project management, what are 3 skills? What are 3 moments when you have done project management? Or if you're doing operations, what would be 3 examples of doing operations? Equally, if you've done sales, client relationship management, or anything else like that, it's really nice to be able to write 2 or 3 examples down. And that way you can make sure that you know how to answer that question in an interview, you know how to back it up when you write it on your CV, all that type of stuff. Okay. Next, briefly outline how you carry out the skill, right? So not just what you do, but how you do it. So what's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do? What's the third thing you do? And what's the fourth thing you do? Now, why do I say this? Well, I say this because a lot of people, when they do a skill, they're not really sure, or when they have a skill, they're not really sure how to articulate it. They're not really sure how to tell other people that they do it well. And so it can be hard to feel fully confident when you haven't really being able to articulate that skill well. So in this case, having a structure for talking about your skill is really, really useful. Now, these are the 4 steps that I use with clients, and I find that it has given really good results and allows people a simple structure that gives them lots of clarity. So here we go. Firstly, you want to understand, then you want to plan, then you want to implement, and then you want to evaluate. So when you think of your skills, what's the first thing you need to understand? Right? If you're talking about client relationship management, project management, software development, business development, whatever it is you're trying to understand, you need to understand the objectives, the obstacles, the resources, the constraints, the needs, the concerns, the performance indicators, and the return on investment. Do you understand all of these? You have a really good idea of what you're doing when you're starting with your skill. Once you understand those steps, typically you want to put a strategy in place. You want to put tactics, timelines, processes, and contingencies in place, right? That's all part of the planning process. So when you understand where you are, next thing you want to do is make a plan. Where are you going to go next, right? Often the goal is involved. It's got to be clear. It's got to be specific. Then, well, you understand where you are. You've made a plan. Next, you want to implement the strategy and the tactics. So you got to communicate this with the team and monitor the real-time feedback and make sure it's in line with the plan and make sure you're using the resources and you're hitting the key performance indicators. That's all part of the implementation step, right? Now, when you think about this for yourself, if you really want to feel confident in not just what you do, but how you do it, being able to describe these 4 steps is crucial. Finally, with any skill, you want to be able to evaluate what you've done, to reflect on it, to look back, give yourself positive and constructive feedback. So evaluate the facts and the feelings. What was the result? Were people happy? So when you think what the result was, you can think of the facts and the feelings. What were the quantitative facts that you can count, you can measure, and what are the qualitative facts that, the opinions, the feelings, were people happy and satisfied overall? You can note down both of those. Now, tell me, folks, is this making sense? Are you struggling with any of these concepts? Do you have any questions with them? Do you find it helpful, or would you like me to switch to a different topic? Please let me know in the chat and I'll get onto that as soon as I can. Now, when you want to piece your 2 or 3 skills together into a nice, concise brand statement, you might put together something that looks like that. Collaborating with developers on product strategy, liaising with multiple stakeholder groups, and providing ongoing coaching and mentoring to new employees. So you can see in this example, the person is talking about collaboration, they're talking about stakeholder engagement, and they're talking about coaching and mentoring. But instead of just saying, I do coaching and mentoring, I do stakeholder engagement, I do collaboration, they're expanding it to include a more descriptive definition so that we can really understand what it is they do and how they do it. So collaborating with developers on product strategy, liaising with multiple stakeholder groups, and providing ongoing coaching and mentoring to new employees. Now, when you're outlining your top skills, you can break them down into these phrases. Now, you saw in the previous example, I talked about the 4 steps you can use. And here are the steps. Here are those steps broken down into specific examples. Okay. Collaborating with developers on product strategy, liaise with multiple stakeholder groups, and providing ongoing coaching and mentoring to new employees. Another example is creating tailored solutions for high value business clients, selling a variety of products, services, and apps, and building strong relationships with clients and internal stakeholders. Liaising with volunteers and members of the public, posting content on social media, and providing support for local events. Leading a cross-functional team of 6 staff to meet their KPIs, continuously driving and implementing process improvement policies, and maintaining control over internal compliance. And finally, driving innovation and strategic growth initiatives, managing the daily operational activities, and providing strong leadership cross-functional teams on high-value projects. Now, you can see how these sentences nicely sum up the experience of various different professionals. If you can use these as examples, take a photo with your phone or take a screenshot or write down what you think would be a good version of this sentence for you. And then that will be the first sentence of your professional brand. Okay. Again, I would love to see you share it in the chat if you're willing to share it. Be brave. Okay. Now, I'll just check to see if we have any questions. No questions so far. So I guess you're all understanding it and we're on the right track. Now, secondary skills. Secondary skills are usually not as important as primary skills, right? Hence they're secondary skills. The secondary skills are usually part of primary skills. It's very rare that somebody will employ you just for secondary skills. They'll often employ you for primary skills, but not secondary skills. So what are secondary skills? Well, here are some examples: delegation and monitoring, conflict resolution, creative thinking, decision-making, relationship building, team building, commercial awareness, and so on. So secondary skills are part of primary skills. They're not need to have, they're more nice to have, or often we just expect people to have them. Having said that, it's very common, I would say like 99% of the time, when you look at a job description and you look at a job application, you're going to see secondary skills written down there. So it's obviously important to the hiring manager. So therefore, you should refer to those secondary skills in your job application, specifically in the professional summary at the top of your CV. If you're creating a professional brand or personal profile from scratch, it's a nice idea for your secondary skills to relate to your primary skills. That way your overall professional brand is consistent. You don't want to have a brand that talks about, skill A and B over here, and then 2 or 3 random skills over here. That's not going to make any sense. You want to have a brand that's consistent through your secondary skills and through your primary skills. And that way it fits together as a nice picture. Okay. When you look at these type of secondary skills, the one that always comes out as a bit confusing for people is commercial awareness. Now, commercial awareness, various people have different definitions. So I'm going to give you 2 definitions that hopefully will clear things up. Commercial awareness is really about understanding the cost-benefit relationship in anything you do. If something costs us money, are we going to get more benefit back than whatever it cost us? So what is the return on investment? That is essentially what commercial awareness is all about. You could also say another definition of commercial awareness is just realizing that the organization or the department has to make money. It is often, organizations are often revenue generating entities, except for not-for-profits, but everyone else typically is trying to make some profit. So with that in mind, if you have an eye on that idea, if you're commercially savvy, if you're commercially aware, you appreciate that the organization is trying to make money, you understand that it's important to save costs, to figure out new ways to make money, to grow the clients, to promote the organization on social media or in emails or in physical marketing campaigns. That's all part of commercial awareness. So are you aware that the organization is a revenue generating entity? And do you understand the return on investment of making investments, or something that costs money is essentially trying to make more money for you? Okay, hope that makes sense so far. Now, um, choose your top 3 or 4 secondary skills, making sure they relate to your primary skills. So we touched on that already. Um, Next is think of some key projects. So, what key projects have you worked on? And have these key projects made an impact on the organization and your team? So, if you take a moment when you're writing your CV, or if you take a moment when you're preparing for an interview, if you write down the key projects that you've worked on, even just the titles, it just allows you to track your mind and figure out exactly what you want to talk about before you go in. Typically, if you ask someone on the spot, give me an example of a successful project you've delivered, or give me an example of when you have turned around a bad client relationship and made it into a good client relationship. If you ask somebody that on the spot, typically they'll go to their second best or their third best example. But if you take a moment to write down 2 or 3 examples, of each skill that you want to highlight, then once you reflect on those, you can pick the best example, and that's the one that you sell in the interview. You don't want to sell the first one that comes to your mind. You want to sell the one that you're reflected on. So write down the key projects that you've worked on, and ideally relate them back to the primary skills that we spoke about at the start. That way you make sure that your experience that you've talked about at the start is consistent with your examples, is consistent with the projects that you're trying to sell later on. Okay. And really, you want to sell them. So you want to be able to attach meaning and significance to them. Now, how do you do that? Well, here are 5 questions that will help you attach meaning, significance, importance to those key projects. So when you're thinking through them, ask yourself, what was the toughest challenge? What was the key metric? What was the key relationship? What was the main metric? What was your top learning? And what was the biggest impact? Okay. Now, toughest challenge. When you did that project, ask yourself, in terms of the toughest challenge, what was the thing that you lost sleep over? What caused you stress? What were you worried about? What were you fearful about? What was the biggest obstacle in your way? All of that difficult moment, those scars that you picked up while you're doing that project, that's something that should stand to you in the future. It's often said that a CV is really just a list of all the scars that you've collected in your career, all the challenges that you've had, all the problems that you've had to deal with. So you don't just incur those, you get to use those to your benefit when you're writing your CV. So, don't leave them out. Make sure you make the most of those. So what was the toughest challenge in the project? What was the key relationship? Who was the person or group or persons who you had to influence, who you had to achieve buy-in, who you have to keep sweet, or you had to negotiate with, mediate with? And what was that key relationship, and how did you go about doing it? Basically, with these types of questions, you want to emphasize the challenge, you want to emphasize the struggle, so that we, the listener, or in an interview, or the reader, when we're looking at your CV or LinkedIn profile, we can really see the value you brought to the relationship at that time. What was the main metric? Was it quantifiable? Was it qualifiable? In other words, was it a feeling? People were happy. There was a satisfaction score of 90%. They gave you a 5-star review. So what was the main metric? Or maybe it was a quantifiable metric, like there was 100% attendance, or there was 25% more subscribers to social media, whatever it might be. What was the main metric? And what was your top learning? What did you learn from the experience? Did you learn more about people? Did you learn more about processes? Did you learn more about projects? Did you learn a better way to save costs, a better way to generate revenue? Is this making sense to you, folks? Tell me if you're understanding me and if you're finding this useful. Um, Also, please ask me any questions that you might have, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can in the chat. We're talking about the 5 core questions that you want to use to emphasize your value when you're going to an interview, or when you're talking about the key projects you've worked on your CV. And finally, what was the biggest impact? What was the impact that you had? What was the impact that the project had? What was the impact it had on the revenue? What was the impact it had on the people, the external stakeholders? What was the impact it had maybe on the economy or the world if it was a really big project that you worked on? So ask yourself these 5 core questions to really emphasize the value you brought when you're doing a project. Now, strengths. We've talked about skills. Now we're talking about strengths. A nice one is to talk about a proven ability. What is an ability, a proven ability that you have that no one else has in the same way? Something consistent that you can deliver to a high level again and again. For example, maybe you're very good at engaging and influencing key stakeholders. Maybe you're good at meeting deadlines and exceeding expectations. Maybe you're good at fostering a collaborative team, a nice work environment, making everyone feel like they're part of the same group, going all in the same direction, a unified mission and vision. Maybe you're very good at creating innovative solutions to complex problems. Maybe the first thing you have to do is understand the root cause of the problem and then come up with various different solutions, tailor them to the organization or tailor them to the problem that you have at hand, and then deliver them. Or perhaps you're very good at fostering a strong coaching culture, asking lots of questions, getting people to ask themselves questions and ask other people questions to guide people to find the right result, right? It's a really key leadership skill if you can foster a strong coaching culture, right? So empowering people to ask the right questions of others and of themselves to get the right answers. Now, do you have a portfolio? A lot of people, if they're in design or if they're in architecture or if they're in anything that's creative, they often have a portfolio. Maybe even engineers might talk about a portfolio as well. Do you have a portfolio of successful work or high-profile companies you've worked with or projects you've completed? Can you post it online or create a simple brochure? Or maybe if you don't have a portfolio, maybe you've got reviews and testimonials that you can use. A lot of people get recommendations on LinkedIn or they get reviews that they get from WhatsApp or Instagram. Can you collect those reviews and testimonials and put them part of your professional brand? Often it's good if they include a combination of text, images, and videos. It just bolsters it a little bit more and makes it more engaging for any viewer. Now, another nice way of selling yourself is by talking about personal attributes. These are, characteristics that you might have, things as part of your personality. They're not quite skills, they're more things that you have naturally. It's more just a natural personal attribute. Maybe you're open-minded, maybe you're naturally an innovative and creative thinker. Maybe you can think laterally to solve all different types of problems. What do you think? When you look through those, do any of those personal attributes particularly strike you as relevant to you? Or are there any of them that you're unsure of that you want to ask me a question about? I'm going to go a bit slower at this section because I know I've been speaking really quickly and I've been trying to deliver a lot of value to you as quickly as possible. But I'm going to go a little bit slower to allow you to look at this slide, think of any questions you have, and ask me in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, please ask me in the chat. This is an open, free career clinic. Ask anything you want. Or if you want free CV software, you can ask me for that, or you can sign up on my YouTube page and I'll send the free CV software to you. It's actually fantastic. You get 6 months for free. Now, after that 6 months, you will have to pay for it. But anyone who uses the software for free for 6 months, maybe they get a job in that time. Maybe they download 10 CVs that they really liked. And then at the end of the day, they feel they don't need to actually pay for it. So I think it's a really, really good deal. Okay. Now, the biggest responsibility is the next part of selling yourself. What is the biggest responsibility that you've ever had? It's often the most important thing that you do at work. Like if there's only one thing that you do at work tomorrow, it's your biggest responsibility. So what do you have to do tomorrow in order to make your job go smoothly? Maybe you've already talked about your skills from a technical perspective, and if so, that's fine. This now is an opportunity to talk about them from maybe an organizational perspective. Maybe you can talk about the people a little bit more, or maybe you haven't talked about commercial results and you'd like to emphasize those. Your biggest responsibility is a nice way of talking about what you do from a different perspective. Write out not just what you do, but also how, and if you want, why. And that gives us a really nice feel for your biggest responsibility. Here's an example. Responsible for coaching professionals to change careers, facilitating group workshops on career development, and managing the daily operations of the business. Yep, you've guessed it. This is my biggest responsibility. I'm responsible for coaching professionals to change careers on a daily basis. These are the one-to-one sessions I do, so that's why I put that first. but I also facilitate group workshops. Well, this webinar is a type of group workshop. The workshop I did last week on Google Meet is a type of workshop that I facilitate. And the one I'm doing on February 3rd is another example of a group workshop. If you want to do that, please sign up. It's going to be on Google Meet and it's going to be face to face. And then finally, managing daily operations. So you can see I've taken 3 core responsibilities and I've grouped them there together to make a big responsibility. Now, I've just got the Tafomi 86. You would like the software, that's fine. If you could send me an email, info@ork.ie, just send me your email at info@ork.ie and I'll send you the software after this. I wonder, will we consider how you can evaluate your skills and reflect whether your current career is right? Will we consider how you can evaluate your skills and whether your career is right? So how do you evaluate your skills? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by evaluate your skills. Like, do you mean if you're good at your skills or not? I guess you mean evaluate whether or not you're good at your skills. Well, a good question to ask yourself is, um, do you enjoy doing them? Often people are good at, often people are very good at what they enjoy doing. So the question I have for you is, do you enjoy the skills that you're currently implementing on a daily basis? Or do you find them difficult to do? If you look at anyone who's really, really successful and enjoying themselves, often they're successful because they find what they do reasonably easy. I don't mean they don't work hard. Of course they work hard, but I mean they find it easy, that it's something they can do continuously, that they can work on, that they don't find as a massive slog. For example, in my case, I work hard, but speaking is reasonably easy for me. Writing is reasonably easy for me. Uh, Listening to people, asking them questions is reasonably easy for me. That's why, career coaching, that's why coaching is a good profession for me. My dad, for example, he's very good at numbers. He's very analytical. So he finds accountancy very good, very, very easy for him. Now, he could also be good at data analytics. He could probably be good at software programming if he got his head around it. But often, if you're good at something, then that's a good sign that you're skilled at it. Maybe you've also got education there. Maybe you've also got projects that you've delivered successfully. And they would all be signs that you're good at your skill. Another thing people do is when they're in the workplace, they would get like a 360 review, because one of the issues people have is they can be overly critical of themselves. So that's something to ask yourself. Am I being overly critical of myself, or am I being accurate? Now, the 360 review, where you ask your colleagues or you ask customers, how am I doing? Am I doing a good job? Or do you have any positive feedback for me? Do you have constructive feedback? That allows you to get outsider feedback, and maybe it balances up maybe a critical voice that you have in your head. So there'd be a few tips I have for you. I suppose the other thing people do is, let's say you're a software programmer, or you have your translator. There's objective tests you can do. Like, you can test your software programming skills, you can test your translation skills, and you can get feedback. That's very objective. If you work in anything that's people related, let's say in my case, because I'm a coach, or if you're a therapist, or if you work in customer service, because that's people related, you're getting feedback from other people. Really, the best way to get feedback in that case is to ask the person directly. Now, you might say, well, I don't feel comfortable asking them, or it's just not possible to ask them. In that case, I understand. You can often get nonverbal feedback. You'll know by their response if they're very happy with what you're saying, or if they're just like, yeah, that was okay, or if they're visibly dissatisfied with what you're saying. You'll get feedback in that way. So I've got another comment here from you. If your current career is making most of your skills, or could a different career path be an option? I come from a consultancy background and want to move away from it, but struggling to find a role in industry away from traditional consulting houses. Right. So if your current career is making the most of your skills, or different career path could be an option. So in that case, if you're thinking I'm a consultant and I want to use my skills in a different background, what could I do? Well, identify exactly what your transferable skills are. Um, have you done that? Have you broken down what they are? You might say, well, consulting. But how do I translate consulting to another area? So consulting is difficult to say in a different way. So I'd recommend, consulting is essentially problem solving. But if you think about essentially what a consultant does, well, first thing is they have to work with clients, right? So usually you have to have good client relationship management skills because that's how you get paid, right? You consult with clients, you deliver a service, you get paid. So typically, client relationship management is a skill. I don't know if you feel you've got that skill or not. After that, project management or project coordination is typically a skill where you have to, get a project from a client. You have to go from understanding the root cause of their issue, putting together a comprehensive plan, and bringing it all the way to fruition. If you're the one who coordinates it, then you could say project coordination. If you're the one who's ultimately responsible for it, you could say project management is the core skill. Um, so a lot of consultants have client relationship management, project coordination, and project management as skills. They might have a third skill, and that really depends if there's a technical element to your consulting. So anyone who's just joined, I'm just responding to someone who's asked questions in the comment section. You might have a third skill if you're a consultant. You might have data analysis. You might have digital media. You might have communications. So if there is a third skill like that, it'd be nice to break the consulting down into that because other industries will understand those transferable skills better. That will allow you to rebrand yourself as not just a consultant, but as those 2 or 3 core skills that they want. Because everyone wants the solution, and if you package it as the solution, it's a lot easier for them to buy it into. You know what I mean? So, do you have good communications skills? Think of communications as sharing message with groups of people, whether it be updating your website, doing presentations, public speaking. Maybe you're good at software development. Maybe you're good at digital media skills. Maybe you're good at marketing. Maybe you're good at sales. A lot of consultants are very good at sales, by the way, because they have to be good at sales in order to sell the consultancy, in order to convince the clients to sell the project, to evaluate the results and demonstrate that their work has been successful. So that would be another thing to consider. Okay, I think you've got the point. Okay, thanks so much. I hope that's been helpful, and thanks for your comments. I really appreciate your interaction. Of course, education is the next one. You've got formal education, whether it's degrees, qualifications, masters, PhDs, and so on, certificates. They've got informal education, when you've gone to conferences, you do continuous professional development yourself, or whatever else it might be. Online courses could be considered informal education in certain respects. Do you have any subject matter expertise? This is something that tech companies can often ask for. They can say, do you have subject matter expertise outside the type of job that you're going for, just to see what else you're interested in, and if you're someone who gets knowledge and understanding to a high level. But you can also have subject matter expertise in your field. Maybe you're an expert on sustainability. Maybe you're an expert on water systems. Maybe you're an expert on TikTok. Maybe you're an expert on data science or artificial intelligence. If you have subject matter expertise, it's good to put that in. And finally, what is your commitment to growth and continuous professional development? That can be a good question to ask yourself and to prepare yourself for an interview. Folks, we're just coming to the end of the session, and we're running out of time. If you have any final questions, please feel free to ask me in the chat. If you want to do a face-to-face session on Google Meet next month, in 2 weeks, on the 3rd of February, please feel free to sign up on my website. Anyone else who wants the free CV software, email me at info@ork.ie, and I'm going to put it in the chat now. Okay, email me info@ork.ie with your email address so I can send you the free CV software. Thanks so much for joining the session. I hope you've got a ton of value from it. I enjoyed interacting with you, and I hope to see you at the next session on the 3rd of February. Thanks so much, and have a nice evening.